had our first album. We had 7 to 8 cuts on our first album, and yeah, 7 to 8 cuts. And so you got to track. You got with drum machines, it was simpler because we would track everything at one time. You got to buy 2 reels of tape, 2 big ass reels of 2-inch tape. Go in the studio, lay your SMPTE track, which is the track that controls all your stuff. So now you're down from 24 to 23 tracks. Hook up the machine, and all your drums go down. Once your drums go down, then you can tie in your keyboards and your bass lines and things of that nature. Then you would go in and do a rough vocal, okay? And once you did your rough vocal and you were satisfied with your rough vocal, you would do your vocals and then come back with your ad libs and sweeteners and scratches. So it would take you shit. It would take you 6 weeks easy to do an album. Then you gotta mix that son bitch. I tell you something that's true about me. By the time I've made an album, I don't want to hear it no more. I'm tired of it. By the time I've made an album, I didn't want to hear my shit no more, man. I don't want to play it. I didn't, here it is over there. Go check it out. Put it in your car. I'd heard it 1,000 times, especially if you mix it with somebody like Dre, who plays shit over and over and over and over and over and over and over, loud. I mean, loud. Yeah, man. And trying to perfect something, or just trying to do something, and you hear something that may be off key, but maybe out of range, or maybe different than it's supposed to be. You trying to hear it? Oh man, dude, it could definitely test your nerves and make it. It could be very nerve wracking. True shit. That's true shit right there. And you out.
You know, people have worked with. Oh, go ahead.
Be out about $10,000 to $15,000, maybe 20.
That was Monday. There you go. So 10 to 15,000 for about 8 songs.
10 to 15.
And we're talking 1980s.
Yeah. If we weren't in the 80s, that song would have cost you 35 or 40, because what saved us in the 80s was drum machines, keyboards, and digital shit. If we had to hire musicians to do that shit, it probably would have doubled. Because you got to practice them. You can't, musicians get paid for rehearsals. They get paid for rehearsals. So if you can bring them in your house and stick them in your garage and start playing drums and keyboards and bass and shit and whatever the case may be, they're on the clock. Okay, we didn't have no charts. A good musician can walk into the studio, and a good horn section or a good musician that can read music, walk into the studio and start playing. If you got charts, we ain't had no goddamn charts. We go, hey man, go like this. Dun, 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 dun. That's your chart right there. In fact, I just did gave permission for the LA Times to use surgery on a piece with one of the guys who worked with us back in the day. His name was Daniel Sulfur. Daniel Sulfur was the guy that programmed Surgery and Juice for us. Surgery and Juice. And he's using a piece of Surgery in this article about how his early days in West Coast hip hop. So yeah, dude, we didn't, you had to have, and he was costing like $150, $200 a song back then. He was getting paid. So, if you don't have no money, man, you didn't have, only thing made me viable was Eve After Dark. So I was able to take money from Eve After Dark and transfer it over to the record business. Most cats didn't have the money. Rudy had money because he worked at Wendy's. Egypt had money. Egypt put money up. I don't know where he got his money from initially, but he had so much success with Egypt. The nigga became a millionaire overnight. Literally. Egyptian Lover blew up. That song, Egypt blew up like nothing else. Okay? It blew up something terrible. And the dude just, he had a shitload of independent money real fast. And then people started focusing on singles, and because the digital era made it more viable to do singles as opposed to albums, a lot of cats did it. And if you got lucky with a single, then you can take your money and double down and make your album.
Damn. Much rougher time than it is today, kids. Listen to what the forefathers had to go through, man.
You wouldn't have made it back then, Doc. You wouldn't have made it. Because even after you make the record, You got to ship it to the radio stations. UPS, the two underlining factors that would kick your ass as a record label owner back in the day was UPS and AT&T. UPS and AT&T, because every record, in order for you to get your record played, you had to send us a physical record to the radio station. Physical record. Records weigh about, I don't know, 8 to 10 ounces. You need two of them. They weigh about a half a pound. They're going to charge you for a pound. So it might cost you $4 back then to send to UPS was your cheapest way of doing it. You got to package it up. You got to put the big ass envelopes, put cardboard in the envelope. All this shit costs money. Wasn't no computer printing out no labels. You were handwriting them yourself. Send it to the radio station, and then give it a week or so and call, see if they got it, see if they heard it. If they hadn't.
Salute OG Steve. Thank you. Thank you.
What do you do? Much love, Steve. Thank you, Doc. And if you didn't have, they hadn't opened it yet, you got to call back again. Back in the day, long distance was big bucks for AT&T. Long distance shit, you couldn't call Compton if you didn't have, if your shit wasn't set up right. If your phone was set up to call Compton and Paramount, and your ass called Inglewood, you finna get a message unit. Message unit gonna kick your ass. Message unit go make your mama want to whoop your ass. Okay, the message units was kicking. They was and don't try to call down south, man. Come on, dude. It wasn't until the late '90s when cell phones came out, we was able to bootleg some cell phones, and I was sitting in the car in my driveway because my phone was attached to my car. We didn't have pocket phones yet. We had car phones, and I had a guy that hooked me up with a chip that allowed me to make phone calls without having to pay for them. So me and my record guy John Brown would sit in my car in the driveway, call all over the goddamn country and track our record. But if not, do it from the office. And you had to pay somebody to make them phone calls. And you had to have the list to call. If you didn't have the list for the phone numbers and the addresses, you had to buy that. That might cost you $400 or $500 back then. Because back then, it was 1,500 independent radio stations. 1,500. So we couldn't afford to ship all 1,500. We started down south with our records. We always started in Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Georgia, all the southern states, because you could get on the air a lot faster, especially back then with hip hop.